Jai Ma Kamakhya, Jai Bhairava, Jai Madara. So today's video is again a continuation of the last video, and in this I will cover some of my viewpoints, some of the astrological combinations that are there, and also a few crucial points for people who see the videos in this channel. First and foremost, let's be very clear, let me be very clear that while naturally the last video triggered a lot of people, there was a flurry of emails, both from people who sort of thought that the protests were genuine and lot who thought that it was not genuine. Either way, uh, a few points need to be very clearly mentioned. First of all, this channel, primarily as it has been and as it will be in future, 98% of the content will be of a spiritual nature, will be discussion on the devatas whom I discuss, sadhanas, and it will carry on as it is. However, as and when I feel an inspiration to speak on something, I will speak without favor, without fear, without caring who likes it, who does not like it. That's how I've been always, which is why perhaps in a way that uh, the case for the protection of the Kamakhya kshetra, responsibility fell on me when there were thousands of other people who could have done, but nobody did anything, which is actually the reality of how things are, which is fine. When a devata tells you to do something, you do it. You don't bother what A thinks, B thinks, this, that, etc. All that is secondary, because each of this becomes a seva to the deity, and each of this transforms the individual and makes him or her closer to the upasak, takes the upasaka closer to the object of upasana. That said, politics is of course a very emotional subject for people, and it is perfectly all right to have a contrary view. In fact, quite a few people who work very closely with me in multiple spiritual things, whom I guide and mentor for quite some time, some of them can have different viewpoints on things, which is perfectly okay. It, however, does not cause any change in the spiritual orientation or the dedication to the devata. However, there is one key aspect to the people whom I guide, which is that there, and this is very vital for anybody who associates with me, the attraction to the devata has to supersede any kind of devotion to any kind of, be it an ideology or a political party or this or that, everything. And this is not a verbal statement. So somebody who says that I actually revere the deities more than XYZ, but the moment that there is the slightest amount of criticism of XYZ, there is an immediate emotional trigger. That where the allegiances are finally placed, because you end up, you act. We are what we do. That is the bottom line of every individual, because as you act, so the energy changes, so your aura changes, so you become what you become. So that said, for a lot of the people who disagree with my political views or what I have mentioned, it's not actually a political view. There's no politics in it. It is a very clear message of support for the section of people who are protesting, especially the students who got beaten up because of the fracas that happened in the during that day, on that day. It's fine to disagree with that. It's fine to have a different opinion, because politics is like that. What, however, I do not tolerate, and such instructions are already given very clearly to the social media team who handles this account and also the other accounts in all the social media platforms. And this is a standing instruction, not now, but much earlier as well. So we do not tolerate uncivil language. We do not tolerate disrespect. to the deities. We do not tolerate trolling because life is too short. You cannot waste on trolling. So anybody engaging in that type of a language, that type of a behavior, uh, crass comments will be immediately blocked because they're wasting their time, they're wasting our time, they have no business coming here. If you notice, in all the videos that I've made and the videos that I will make, I rarely ever tell anybody. In fact, I never tell anybody to subscribe because it's a very natural process. The idea of speaking is not so that A will be happy, B will be sad, C will be neutral. No. So there is something to be communicated, you communicate that. Whoever needs to hear it will get to hear it. Whoever needs to benefit from it will benefit from it. So there is no need to specifically target or tell people, or always, kind of um, uh, sort of, behave in that very propagandist way that, oh, you got to follow me, you got to follow him, you got to follow that. No, that's not needed. You just put the message out and it will reach whomever it has to reach, and it will do whatever it has to do. So in a way, the last video, this video, and in time whenever I put forth any kind of views on politics, social affairs, this, that, etc., things happening in society, whenever I feel inspired to do, they're also a kind of filtering process. Filtering, why? Because disagreement is fine. If you put it in a civil manner, that is okay, that's wonderful. But if crass language is used, abusive language is used, trolling is used, you'll be blocked immediately. That's how this thing functions. Or if you are here for only the spiritual content, which is going to be the 98% of content in this channel, then you can skip those videos where I talk about anything else. So that judgment, that discretion is from the viewer side. So that said, keeping that aside, that out of the way for that matter. So there are few interesting things in the development that have happened in India and that is spreading across various cities in India. I do firmly believe that the violence that happened was extremely counterproductive for the country, regardless of who actually started it, because there are various counterclaims. So there are people, there's a section of the media that says, okay, this has been done by the protesters. There's another section that says, no, it is not the protesters, it's the police who has done it. So these things can only uh, be analyzed now that the matter is in court, which is what I read recently. So it's only after an impartial investigation it has to be found out who started. But even without that, the fact that violence happened in such a gathering, uh, it's not uncommon. Anybody who studies these things, I am sure the authorities are well aware, far more aware than you and me and ordinary citizens, that whenever there is a gathering of young people, highly emotionally charged, and then there is a strong presence of police with, riot gear, tear gas, pellet, and whatever else was used, it's like throwing a matchstick into a pile of gunpowder, and then you expect that there will not be a friction. So this, in my opinion, was a very bad move. It was a bad move even before reaching up to the day when the protests escalated. This was going on for days. There's a certain degree of angst that was there among the people. It should have been addressed clearly, positively, but nothing was done. So, what happens when there is a large section of people? Uh, Suppose, for example, so there is a counterpoint that has been placed and by many people that they were not students, etc. So I don't buy that argument. There are nefarious elements, there are riffraff elements in the protest, no doubt about it. Nature of protests are like that. Any kind of public protests, there are always. So if there is a group, if there is a gathering of 1,000 people, maybe 200, 250 of them are these kind of negative elements who will infiltrate and cause trouble. But there is a good 6 to 700 people who are very ordinary people. Students or not, they are ordinary citizens of India. They have gathered because there is some kind of angst or grouse. If that is not addressed, if you label everybody continuously, oh, everybody is the same bracket as an anti-national, some deep conspiracy that is going on, that angst and anger is going to increase, and it is going to cause some reaction somewhere. Very dedicatedly, 100% some reaction is coming. And in fact, the progression of this whole thing happened exactly that way. The day the violence happened, Immediately it escalated across India. It's good today that at least the Prime Minister has addressed this point in a video in sort of in midnight, and I was watching that, something that I don't think he has done for any of the other protests, which also means that he himself does not buy into the propaganda that this is only, all of them are some kind of anarchists or some disgruntled elements. So the point is, when somebody says that, okay, I am standing with the students, what exactly does that mean? You can't protest, you can't march to the parliament. By the way, marching to the parliament, while there are legal prohibitions, there are at least 8-10 different occasions in India when it has happened before. And many times where even people who are currently in power, they themselves were younger as political leaders, they have participated. And it will happen in future as well. Because it's a feature of democracy. It's a feature of how protests happen, because they don't happen by textbook. Whenever emotions run high, these kind of measures, moves do happen. The authorities know this better than anybody else. And in this instance, they had already declared that they're going to do something like that. So the aim should have been to curb the protest peacefully, negotiate, end it, get to the point where the resignation, what was being asked, was done, and finish it off even before it goes to that state. But now it is there, and it has crossed that state, and there are some difficult times coming. There is a very beautiful nimitta, a chronology of nimittas that have happened in this protest. And it is not now, it has happened before. It has happened much earlier, but for that you have to be very detached from it to understand that how things are going. So we have this instance where a few months ago, the Chief Justice of India, Sri Suryakant, makes a flippant comment that some unemployed youth are like cockroaches or something. It's very interesting that when you think of it, the Chief Justice is a very powerful position. It's a unique position. Only one individual has it. It's a position of great authority, prestige, power, and glory. And in this case, the name of the individual also is the name of the king of the grahas, Surya. Surya, when it is very powerful, when it is very good, in its highest beneficence, gives lot of fame, lot of authority, lot of power, and can take one to the Atman itself and experience Shiva or Bhairava for that matter. In fact, we have in the Kal Bhairava Ashtakam, Bhanu Koti, we mentioned that brilliance of, lot of Suryas. On the other hand, the Surya also has another side to it, and that is arrogance. Surya represents politics. Surya represents political authority. Nobody who does not have a powerful Surya in their horoscope can shine in very high positions in politics or in government for that matter. I mean, it's a very standard dictum to check if somebody should apply for government roles or not. And a flippant comment from him is about cockroaches. So cockroach is that type of an animal, of an insect, sorry, which is ruled by Rahu and also Saturn. Rahu because it's an insect, and also there is an element of Saturn in it because it prefers very dark spaces and other things. So here, without going into too much of the tales of the Jyotish and other things, but here there's a very interesting thing that is happening. So here is Surya, and from Surya's very dismissive words comes out Rahu. This is how Saturn is born, by the way. If you look at the Puranas, you will see that Shani is a Chaya, is born from Surya, from his blind spot. He's a sun. He is somebody who issues forth from Surya. Saturn comes out of Surya. And Saturn absolutely dislikes Surya. These two represent things which are very diametrically different and contradictory, and there is a conflict here between the father and the son. Same way, this whatever organization, movement, this, that, etc., is very flippantly born. Nobody thinks that it has any future, nothing. And then few individuals, so let's right or wrong, whether these are national, international, leave all that aside. Leave all the credentials aside. The fact is they come together in a particular space and they are protesting for a few days. 10 people, 100 people, 200, whatever number of people are going. For 10 days, people think it's just a joke. Nothing is going to happen. Nobody cares. Somebody thinks that, oh, there's a bunch of anti-nationals. Government is very sure and secure in space that, oh, I don't want to talk to them. So Surya is very confident that it doesn't need anything. It is very secure in its position. It's secure in its authority. And Rahu is developing. Saturn is developing. And then suddenly it explodes. In the whole solar system, Surya has the capacity to combust any graha. Combust means its fiery nature is so powerful. I mean, anybody with even basic knowledge of Jyotisha will know this. Which is another way to say that Surya can overpower any graha except one, and that is Rahu. Rahu is that entity, a graha. When it is powerful, it is so powerful that it can consume Surya and Chandra for dinner and lunch. And that is exactly how things played out. So suddenly this entity, which was a very small thing and people wrote it off, there were all sorts of nothing is going to happen, this is this, that, etc. They've come very small, minor. Government's attitude was also very, dismissive. A certain degree of arrogance. We don't speak to everybody. And then comes in Mars. Mars is violence. So there is a certain projection of Mars that, okay, we will contain this, we will stop this, we will use some force. Whatever happens, one way or the other, eventually this is going to disperse. Nothing is going to be left. The reaction is just opposite. Reaction is that it suddenly, what was here, it blows up into here. And there are different cities where the protests are happening, different types of people, whatever the agenda, but just collecting people together, which is this kind of an exponential growth for anything is only and only governed by Rahu, a very powerful Rahu, a Rahu that has the capacity to eat away the sun, that type of Rahu. This is a very, very fine script given by nature for anybody who has the slightest amount of ability to understand nimittas without being emotionally consumed by various narratives. If you step back and see, you see that this is the way in things have progressed. It's like Rahu and Saturn, the Chaya Graha and the Graha of justice, getting born out of Surya and then slowly developing in its own space away from Surya, initially dismissive of it. Everybody thinks that, oh, nothing is going to happen, this is dismiss, etc. And then suddenly it explodes into a condition so powerful, so uncontrollable, that even Surya, the Prime Minister of India, and thankfully he has done a very good job in this, I believe, he had to come online and speak something, make a video at midnight, something he has not done in any of the protests till date ever, to the best of my knowledge. Why would this happen? Is it only because of concern for something? Because there is another aspect. When these protests were developing, when this sequence of events were happening, these nimittas were playing out, it's as if some great script writer, call it nature, I call it Mahakal Bhairava, when he writes down the script from the beginning, step by step, he's giving clues of what he is planning to get done and how things will work out. This is the one protest which has the capacity to cause a very, very powerful, disturbing change. It is unlike any of the other protests that happened because of the timing of the grahas when this came into being. And now, the easiest way to stop this protest would have been to meet the protesters even before the day of that march and just make that minister resign. It would have immediately taken off the sting from how these grahas, the energies that are building up. But ego comes in the way, arrogance comes in the way, and then suddenly things explode and one does not know what to do and what not to do. Additionally, Saturn is going to retrograde, and around, I think, August 12 or something, there is a solar eclipse that will happen. Though it is not visible in India, but its impact will be present very strongly in the Rashi of Cancer, Karkata, which incidentally holds a very key position in the formation chart of India. So it is going to trigger a lot of emotions. And it has the capacity to take this whole thing into a dimension which one cannot imagine. So in this whole story of Surya and the birth of Saturn and then Rahu, interesting, the Jyotish Grahas will tell you that Rahu is like Shani, just like Ketu is like Mars. Shani is born from the blind spot of Surya. Surya is authority, power, governance. That which you cannot control is like the Ashtam Bhava. That which you do not even see, that which you fail to recognize, it is from there it comes out and it causes the maximum amount of problems for it. This is exactly the way things have played out. Where is this going to end? How is this going to affect the future? Before I even go into discussion of all that, the first thing is that how does it affect dharma? It makes no difference. We are at a stage where certain things have already been set astrally. The rise of dharma, the sustenance of dharma, and the refinement of dharma is 100% assured for times to come. It is not dependent on a political party, it is not dependent on an individual, it is not dependent on anybody. Dharma arises the moment there are sufficient number of people worshipping the devatas, because the moment in the right way. And for me personally, my chief area of interest is the revival of Shakta Dharma, Shakti Upasana, Bhairava Upasana, these things. The moment there are people doing it, automatically the energy increases in the atmosphere, in the astral spaces, and that does what it has to do in its own way. So that energy is not governed or cannot be governed by only human will any further. It takes a life of its own, and that is why when we do the monthly sevas in different temples, the very term, the sankalpa used is for the uplift of dharma. The deity knows what is best for dharma. It is not necessarily what A thinks, B thinks, C thinks, not really. So they have their independence to decide because they have a vision which humans lack. We see immediately, we see as we are programmed to see. They, on the other hand, are not subject to that programming. They can see things on a far deeper and grander scale that anyone can imagine. So, as far as dharma is concerned, there is absolutely almost 1,000% guarantee of its greater awakening in the times to come. And as it awakens, it is going to take India into a more powerful condition and state. However, it is very important to understand, and when dharma is spoken about, it does not just mean a kind of performative dharma, which means that, okay, I see a lot of, I say, use deity names, I wear a particular kind of dress and do, etc. Dharma's key aspects are certain very internal qualities also. For example, truthfulness, for example, ethics. These things are very vital to dharma. If these are not there, then the dharma will not survive. In fact, you see a prime example of it the moment Jupiter went into exaltation. That is where the scams in the Ram temple came up in public. This has been happening for, I guess, 1-2 years now. People were not aware. But the moment Jupiter came into exaltation, Jupiter is the Deva Guru of ethics. Dharma's one of the first principles is ethics. Higher Dharma stands on ethics. Higher Dharma is not entirely performative, which means that do something for public consumption. I believe in this deity, I do that, I do take the name of Lord Rama 100 times, but I do not ensure that his temples are corruption free. Then immediately there is going to be reaction from the devatas, which is good for us in a way. If you are a true dharmic, you think that this is the best thing possible, because you only emerge stronger, better, cleaner, and more powerful when you are put through the churn by the devatas. The importance here is to have absolute faith on the feet of the Ishta Devata rather than to place faith on any kind of power structure, any kind of narrative, etc. Or again, this kind of political structure, that kind of political structure. No. They have the capacity to reconfigure things in a way that is most suitable for Dharma. Anybody who rules India, not just today, whether it's 2029 or whether years to come, will be dharmic. There is no doubt about it. And the quotient of dharma is going to increase, by the way. Not just, again, a dharma for show or a dharma that has more of the, again, performative element, but equally and more importantly, an internalization of the principles of dharma. It is the Devata who sets this condition, and it is the Devata who ensures this condition. As more and more people take to spiritual practices, these things will automatically get ensured and enabled over time in India. So that is not in question. However, what is the route through which that is achieved? It is best left to the hands of the deities whom we worship, because they know it better than anybody else. So that is not really a point of doubt or a point of question. However, from this point onwards, till the 2029 elections is going to be a rough ride for everybody, and especially for the government. One after the other. See, when nature decides, when Mahakala decides to put some things in, or perhaps to force certain kinds of destinies, then it makes larger forces. In the example that I was giving, this whole thing could have been cut down even before that day of the Parliament March, but for various reasons things were ignored, and Rahu was allowed to completely grow into its complete power. And once Rahu comes into power, it is not at all easy to stop it. Surya, authority, Mars, these cannot stop Rahu. It requires something else. There are other ways of doing this, but mentioning that is not suitable here, because I am pretty certain, and I know for a fact, that many people, not just ordinary people, there are others also who see my videos. So that said, everything finally comes down to destinies of collective individuals, because at the end of the day, the destiny of a nation is the destiny of the collective individuals. So every time somebody does sadhana, it changes the karma of that individual to a degree, and when sufficient change of karma happens, it affects the larger destiny of the nation. So these things are going to cause some impact. I still believe that the best course of action for the government, after the Prime Minister made that video, and again, that's a very, very good move. It should have been done earlier itself. And it is very good that the whole arrogance of we don't talk to anybody and we don't talk to everybody is a anti-national, we don't speak to them, has been reduced. That volume has been toned down, which is perfectly correct, and which is what should have been done earlier itself, instead of listening to a whole set of wrong advices from people around them, I'm afraid. And the next step should be asking the relevant minister to resign and thus put an end completely to this here and now. However, I do fear that as Saturn is turning retrograde, whether this is how it will end or not, it cannot be said any further, because once a graha becomes retrograde, it gives, especially when it governs destinies of large number of people or a nation, it gives results which one cannot even imagine or expect or predict so easily. And this condition is going to go on for a few months. And the angst, the anger that has actually spread among a large section of Indians because of this may have a very direct impact on the next elections. Though we love to believe that public memory is short, however, if there are one after the other troubles that keep coming, then public memory will not be short. So human beings are emotional people. They don't really judge rationally everything. Suppose there is one kind of problem now, and next year there are economic troubles that happen. Very likely, India's 2027 is going to be more dramatic than 26. Then there are wars that happen, various things that happen. So all this will pile up in the angst already present there, and especially for the youth. This is the generation, as everybody is speaking, and which is true. This is the generation that is not fed by the mainstream media. It is not fed by YouTube, Twitter, and all that. It lives in the Instagram generation. It has not seen things like that. It has never faced brutality, and its reaction has been something which is obviously completely offbeat, completely out of the blue, and completely taken the normal methods of controlling narrative that comes from the government falling short of battling this. Just before making this video, I saw one of the news that was displayed that the Prime Minister has asked his ministers to be more present on Instagram, which is a very good advice, but it should have been taken much earlier. Unfortunately, now there is a gap to catch on, and it's not going to be easy, because the kind of creativity that the younger generation have, others simply do not have. There is the age gap causes a complete divorce from understanding that type of aesthetics, creativity, or that communication. Regardless, I hope that this whole boiling of anger, the simmering and the outflush of anger that is visible across India, the first step would be to calm it down by ensuring that the demand for the resignation of the minister is met. But if you are an individual who is an Upasaka, again, you can have your personal views. It's perfectly fine. Politics is like that. When it comes to my videos, to reiterate, while I will be maintaining, at least ensuring that majority of the content, almost 98% of the content, will be only on spiritual topics, but as and when I feel like speaking on something related to politics, society, this, that, I will speak freely. You can ignore that if you don't want. You can disagree to it, that is also okay. But if there is uncivil language, if there is trolling or any kind of behavior that is disrespectful, those ideas will be banned. That's all. I mean, life is too short to waste on, arguments with anybody, for that matter. You state your views, you can agree, you can disagree. As long as we are civil and polite, everything is fine. And the last point, as I mentioned, the eclipse that is coming, however, from the sadhana point of view, is very powerful, especially for people who do Devi Sadhanas, especially for people who have done sadhanas of Tara or Durga. The day when the eclipse happens, the time when the eclipse happens, is extremely potent this time. And any type of Ma Tara sadhana or Ma Durga Upasana during that time is going to bring very powerful impact at an individual level. Spiritual impact I'm talking about, because materialistically we will pass through various difficult times. As I said, this is just the beginning of we already very tough times, but this is going to be even more tougher, and this toughness will reflect, not perhaps, it will reflect on the government. It's like the heat will be turned on the government by nature, and that's what it is. That's how it will be. So the quicker sanity comes, and the quicker the correct steps are taken at the right time, it's good for everybody. With that, I'll end the video. Jai Kamakhya, Jai Matara, Jai Bhairava.